Mr. Waltz, do you believe President Trump has the constitutional power to determine troop assignments?
Thank you, Senator. And his Article 2 authority, I do.
In the summer of 2020, there was much discussion and there have been statements by President Trump that he intended to draw down troops in Afghanistan. You were serving on the Armed Services Committee at that time, and Liz Cheney and Jason Crow put forward an amendment. And with that amendment, they attempted to circumscribe his power to assign troops. They specifically added conditions, and you supported that amendment. So I guess my question is, which is it? Does President Trump have the power under the Constitution to determine troops, or do you think Congress should, as you attempted to do when you voted for Liz Cheney's amendment, do you think Congress has the right to limit his power to remove troops from a war situation?
I certainly, thank you, Senator. I certainly supported President Trump's effort to draw down our forces, to keep Bagram Air Base, to keep a lid on counterterrorism, and certainly keep a powerful presence there.
You voted for the Jason Crow amendment, the Liz Cheney amendment, to place restrictions on his ability to remove troops. Specifically, the amendment said he couldn't draw them down under 8,500 troops.
Senator, I'll have to go back and look at the specific details of that amendment, or whether that was a broader vote.
Pretty important amendment because it goes to the heart of the Constitution, and this is sort of the problem and one of the things I fear. The Liz Cheney wing of the party, the neoconservatives, they believe in virtually unlimited Article 2 authority when going to war, to initiate war. There seems to be no limits. The idea that Congress should be involved with declaring war is sort of passé, it's old-fashioned. But when it comes to ending a war, you voted with Liz Cheney and the others to say that the president couldn't end the war, that he had to perform different reports. Here's what one of the reports said that he had to do before he was allowed to remove troops. This is the Cheney-Crow Amendment. It required a report from President Trump concerning the status of women's access to voting, education, justice, and economic opportunities. You know, support for women's rights is great, but it's really not typically given as a reason to go to war or stay at war. And basically the amendment you voted for based the decision on whether or not he would have to explain himself as to how well it was going for women in Afghanistan before Congress would consent. Specifically, the amendment says you wouldn't fund or allow him to move troops with DOD funds. It was an incredible amendment. I've never seen anything like this, where Congress actually voted to remove DOD funds to let the president remove troops from a war theater. Look, I'm a big fan of the limitation of presidential power on initiating war, but once we're at war, I've never really quibbled with the president's power to execute the war, to be the commander-in-chief. When you were deployed, I can't see Congress coming to Congress and saying, well, how are women's rights over there for Colonel Waltz? Should he be able to go in there or leave because, well, let's have a congressional report on this? I mean, I think that's insane, and I just don't understand how you could have voted for this. I mean, should Congress force President Trump to analyze such vague terms as justice before removing troops from a war zone? I mean, I don't understand how you could have voted for this amendment.
Senator, I look forward to continuing our discussion that we had. There's a lot of room in between where we have troops and necessarily if we're at war. So, for example, we've had troops in Colombia for quite some time. They're not actively engaged in combat. They're engaged in a training mission to help that government through our presence on the ground.
Afghanistan was one of the rare times.
One of the things at the time
Afghanistan
the president
was one of the rare times
was,
when Congress actually had authorized. We voted for an authorization of force. It's one of the few times I can think of in recent history I would have actually supported that resolution. Congress voted to send the troops to Afghanistan to get the people who attacked us on 9/11. And yet you were willing to, in a war zone where soldiers were at war, place restrictions on the president's ability to move troops around based on women's access to voting. There's also another clause in there that said based on how well the Afghans were dealing with disabilities. Look, I have a great deal for people with disabilities. That's a big issue in our country, but it really isn't an issue of war. And to hamstring and tie President Trump's hands and say, oh, well, you can't remove, troops until we discuss how well the Afghan government is dealing with disabilities. Are they going to be able to deal with disabilities when we go? I guess it just worries me that you come more from the Liz Cheney wing of the party than the Donald Trump wing of the party.
Senator, I am squarely with the president, have been with him in every single election I participated in, and him with me in terms of the limits on hard power. And I can tell you for certain that people who hate war the most are the people that have to go fight them and die from them. I have many of them with me, and I never want to attend another funeral, and I certainly support the president's diplomacy first, as I know you do, approach, as we just saw in the Middle East, his commercial diplomacy that we're seeing around the world, and will do everything I can, if confirmed as ambassador of the United Nations, to keep us out of wars and to end conflicts.
Senator Booker.